Welcome to learn full stack web development with React, Node, MongoDB, and Next.js. In this course, you will learn to build backend API with Node and MongoDB. You will learn to build front-end web app with React and Next.js. You will learn to build SEO web app using Next.js, which is a framework for building React applications. By the end of this course, you will have built a production-ready, search engine optimized, multi-user blogging platform. So this course is mainly about Node, React, Next.js, and SEO. So let's talk about why we choose this stack and a bit more about SEO as well. So we choose Node, React, and Next.js because they all use same programming language, JavaScript. So even though it's a full stack app with separate API and separate frontend, we will be dealing with only one language, JavaScript. We choose Node.js and MongoDB for building API because it is incredibly easy, flexible, and easy to scale. We choose React because it is extremely powerful, performant, and recently became so much fun and easy to use with the introduction of hooks. We choose Next.js because it takes the development process of React apps to a whole new level. It comes with server-side rendering out of the box, and server-side rendering is necessary for SEO. Next.js, starting with version 9, automatically decides if your page can be served as a static page or dynamic page. If your page is not making any request to your backend server to fetch data, then Next.js automatically serves that page as a static page. Static pages load extremely fast because they have static content. There is no need to wait for server response. So you can build your site's homepage or landing page, a static page with static content such as a pre-written text and images to make it extremely fast. I have used Next.js professionally to build a web app and it scores 100 out of 100 in Google page speed. So it is extremely impressive. Next.js from version 9 prefetches the pages automatically behind the scene. So when the home page is loaded, other pages of your site is prefetched behind the scene. So when user navigates to different pages, it is lightning fast. With Next.js, all your pages are SEO. So either static or dynamic pages, they are all search engine optimized. And the best thing about Next.js is that it's pretty much React. You still create components the way you would usually do with React. There are only few differences such as routing and lifecycle method provided by Next.js, which makes server-side rendering possible. You will learn all that stuff while building this project. So if you're looking to build extremely high-performant app that will leave all your competitors behind and stand out in the crowd, this course will show you exactly how you can build such app. This blogging app is built for production use, and it is flexible enough for you to use as a one-person blogging platform or a blogging platform for your business, or even use as a foundation of a marketplace app because it has role-based multi-user blogging system in place. So join me in this course and start coding this awesome app together. This course has everything you want to learn to build a real-world full-stack project. It has user sign-up and sign-in. It has forgot password, reset password, account activation on user sign up, so they will be receiving an email. If they click on that email, only then they will be able to sign up. So we will have social login with Google. We will have a JWT based authorization and authentication system. We will have admin and user role based authorization system. We will have multiple user blogging platform. There will be advanced CRUD with image upload, blogs search, and load more blogs feature, creating categories for blogs, creating tags for blogs. There will be a very good in-depth search engine optimization. It has a practical real-world project that is running live in the server. It has the API development with Node, Express, and MongoDB, and it has front-end web development with React and Next.js. It has server-side rendering for SEO with Next.js. It has users' public profile page with the list of the users' blog. It has users' private dashboard as well, where they will be able to create blogs, update the profile, and so on. It has multiple user authorization system, multiple user system that can be scaled to build advanced marketplace app if you want to do that. Each blog creator can also be contacted using the private contact form. It has a standard contact form as well. It has a discuss commenting system. It has blogs search feature, related blogs as well. I will also show you how to integrate Google Analytics to your web app. We will be using SendGrid to send emails. And finally, we will deploy the app to DigitalOcean cloud servers, where we will also learn how to add a domain and how to use Cloudflare content delivery network to serve your website extremely fast. And we will also utilize the free SSL certificate that we can get with Cloudflare. And on top of all this, we will have clean code and easy to scale project structure and a lot more. Are you tired of taking online courses, spending months following with those courses and building useless apps that have no real world value? Then you have arrived to the right course. This course will not only make you a full stack React Node ninja, but also hold your hand and takes you all the way from scratch to deploying a real world multi-user blogging platform that you can use in real world for yourself, for your boss, or build your own startup business for the entire world. Yes, you can take this course and build an app that will be one of the best apps you have ever made. Learn, build, and grow. That's what this course is about. Are you ready? Before you take this course, make sure to know the basics of React and Node.js. You need to know how request response cycle works in Node.js, what is event loop and how it works, all that stuff. Knowing how Node.js works will make everything clear and easy to understand. You can take my social network project, which is another course here on Udemy, which goes through the basics of modern JavaScript, React, Node, and MongoDB. That course not only gives you a solid understanding of React and Node, but also shows you how to build a full stack social network project, which is a great project to build while learning and to become a full stack JavaScript developer. I also have a Next.js course, which is a short course and to the point. Feel free to check that out if you want, but I will be explaining everything about Next.js in this course, so you should be alright. With that being said, let's start coding. We will begin building our API with Node.js from the next lecture. It is time for us to start coding our multi-user blogging platform with SEO with React, Node, MongoDB, Next.js, which is going to be absolutely incredible. So let's begin. The first thing you want to do is decide where you want to create your project. I have this folder in the root. It's called Udemy, and I'm going to create my project here. Okay, and I have the terminal open as well. So let me navigate to my folder, cd Udemy, and here I'm going to create a folder where I'll have both our backend and the front end project. Okay, so let me create a directory, make directory, let me call it SEO blog. Okay, let me go inside SEO blog. Let me create a folder for our Node.js API. Make directory, I'm going to call it backend. And let me also make another directory for frontend. Okay, so we got those folders there. Let me go inside backend. And first thing we need to do is we need to initialize our project with package.json file so that we can bring in npm packages and build up our application, right? So we can run from inside this backend folder npm init-y. With y, we are saying we're going to accept all the default that we get with this command npm init. So as you can see, these have been automatically generated with the name backend, version, description, and so on. Okay, we're going to make change in this package.json file. As you can see here, we have backend and it has been created. Let's open this in the text editor. I'll be using Sublime Text for this project. I've been using this for a long time and I really like it. You are obviously free to use your favorite one. Many people are using VS Code these days, so you should be fine. All right. So this is our package.json file. Now, before we do anything here, we want to install few more packages and create few more files like .env, .gitignore, so that we are good to go. Okay, so let's go back to our terminal one more time and let's create a .gitignore file. .gitignore. You can obviously right click and create a file manually. You don't have to use terminal if you don't want to. Another one I would like to create is torch.env, where we can store all the environment variables, and then we need to install a few packages. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run npm install. First thing we need is Express. We need Mongoose to talk with MongoDB. We need body parser, and I will make this code available in a separate file so you don't have any typos or anything. You can just copy paste. All right, so Express, Mongoose, body parser, cookie parser. So these files will help you pass the JSON data from the request body. We will be sending requests from the front end to the back end, so this will give us the JSON data, otherwise we will not see anything. Okay, so cookie parser, body parser, we need Morgan as well. Morgan will help us see the endpoints in the terminal. So when some requests are coming from the client side to the backend, you will see if it is coming to our localhost /blogs, then you will see that printed in the console, which is pretty good in the development mode. Okay, so we need Morgan, we need NodeMon. NodeMon we can use to continuously run our Node.js server. Okay, we need .env so that we can get access to the environment variables in our application using .env. We can also use course so that our API is accessible to the front-end clients. Otherwise, you will get errors like cross-origin requests errors. So these are all the packages we need at the moment. We will obviously come back and install more later. Okay, let's hit enter. Okay, so these packages have been installed. Now let's go back to our project here. First thing we want to do is go to Gitignore and let's add node modules folder. So this folder contains all the packages, so we don't want to push them to GitHub when we push our project to GitHub, right? This is list of files and folders that are used by all these packages, so we want to add them to Gitignore file so we do not commit them to a GitHub. So that's for Gitignore. And let's go to .env and we can write some env variables here. Let's begin with node env and let's write it development. So it is in the development mode. When you push this project to the live server, you will change this to production, right? So at the moment it's development. Let's specify the port. So the port we can use 8000. So port 8000 will be used by our server, and we can also write the client URL, and that is going to be http://localhost:3000. Okay, so this is going to be our client URL. Again, this one is going to change when you push your project to the live server. So with this, we're done with env file. Now let's build up our server. So we're going to create our server in server.js. So let's go ahead, create this new file, server.js, and let's start bringing in the packages. Okay, so const express equals to require express. Okay, Let me just copy multiple times. Okay, so we need Express, we need Morgan, okay, we need body parser, okay, notice the capital P, we need cookie parser, we need course, okay, that's pretty much it, and we need the .env as well, .env .config. Okay, so that's how we can load env variables. Okay, so let's make change here. Morgan body dash parser, cookie dash parser, and course. Okay, so that's all we need at the moment. Next, let's create our app, and that's going to be using Express. Okay, so we create a variable called app, okay, and that is going to be Express, and we invoke the Express app. Okay, so the Express app will be available in this app variable. This app will be using few middlewares. Okay, middlewares. So app.use, we apply middlewares using the use method. So first middleware we want to apply is Morgan, and we give the argument of dev, so it's in the development mode. That will give us the endpoints in the console. Okay, so app.use Morgan, app.use body parser .json. Okay, and we can also say app.use cookie parser invoke as well. Course is also a middleware, so let's write course here. So course, it's going to be app.use course, and we can pass some configuration here. We'll come back to that later. Let's create routes. Okay, we're going to move routes and controllers to separate folders and separate files, but at the moment let's just write here before we move. Okay, app.get. Okay, so when we get request to /API, so localhost 8000 /API, when we get any request to this endpoint, we want to respond, right? So what do we want to respond? First of all, we get this request and response object. Okay, so we can send response, a JSON response, and for the time being, let's just give them the current time. Okay, so time equals to date dot to string. Okay, so anytime our server receives a request to /API, we will respond with the current time in JSON format. Okay, so that's our route. Now let's handle the port, because we need to run the server and port 8000, right? So let's write a variable port, and that's going to be coming from the env variables. We have the port, right? So we get access to env variables using this .env, the package we have. So we can access that using process.env.port. Okay, we access the port variable from this env file, and if it doesn't exist, we can pass the default value of 8000 using this OR operator. Okay, so either pick from the env or use 8000. Okay, now we can run our app. So app can listen on port. We can just leave it like this. We don't need to pass second argument. We can just leave it. But if you decide to use the second argument, which is a function, you can console log, and I'm going to use backticks. Okay, these are not quotes, these are backticks. They are on top left of your keyboard, just below the escape button. Okay, so backticks, and let's write here server is running on port and we can embed the variables in this backtick. It's called template strings. So let's embed the variable. To embed the variable, you just use $sign and curly brace, and here you can write a variable. Okay, support. Okay, let's save this file. So this is the entry point for our server. So we have bring in some packages from npm, and we invoke the express app, store that in a variable called app. Then we applied some middlewares on this app, right? Then we created our first route that will handle the incoming request. Any request coming to /API, we will respond with the current time, and our server will be running on port 8000. Okay, so this is our Node.js server. Let's give it a try. But before we do that, we need to make a small change in package.json. Okay, so a script, because when you go to the terminal, you want to run something like npm start, right? So for that, we need to create this start. Here we can put the start script here in the package.json, and we write here. So when you run that command npm start, what do you want to do? Okay, what I want to do is I want to start the server. Okay, so we can execute this file server.js, that is the core, right? So we want to execute that using node. So you can say node server.js. Okay, but the downside of this one is that anytime you make change, you have to stop the server and start again. And to avoid that, because that is very impractical, you can't just restart the server all the time whenever you make change, right? So to avoid that, you can use this package. That's why we install this package, nodemon. So instead of node, use nodemon to execute this file. This will execute this file for the first time, and anytime there is a change, you write some code that will automatically restart the server thanks to the nodemon. Okay, so with this, make this change in your package.json file. Now we should be able to execute server.js, run this code, get this response in this endpoint. Let's give it a try. So npm start. Okay, server is running on port 8000. Let's give it a try. Localhost 8000. Okay, we don't see anything here because we are not handling the default route. Okay, however, we are handling the API, because if you remember, we have the API endpoint. Okay, so if you try API, you see the current time. Okay, because we are responding with the current time whenever there is a request in /API. Okay, so there it is. Congratulations, you have successfully set up your Node.js server. And because we have Morgan package used as middleware, you can see the endpoints. So this is the endpoint that returned 200 status code, which means okay, and you see the endpoint here. Okay, so this is the beauty of Morgan package we installed earlier. All right, so there you go. Our Node.js server is up and running. Now we're going to continue in the next lecture. Our server is up and running, and it is accessible. We can access it in the browser. Okay, it's in the same origin, and it can also be accessed from the client-side application that we will develop later with React, right? And while in the development, we can use another tool called Postman to test our API. Okay, so if you don't have it, you can install. So I have already installed Postman, so let me open Postman. Okay, so from Postman also we can make requests to our API. Okay, so here you can make sure you have the get request. We just make get request to 8000/API. Okay, and you see we get the time response. Beautiful. So we will be using Postman quite a lot while we are building this API. There's one more thing we can do with our server here. At the moment, we have applied course, but we haven't passed any configuration. So in development, we will be running our backend in port 8000, which is a different origin. and our client will be running in port 3000, which is a different origin. So when we make a request from our client side to our server side, you will see some kind of error in the browsers. That's called course error. Okay, let me go to images. I just want to show you the course. Yeah, we get some kind of error like this. Cannot load this route. Response to preflight doesn't pass access control. No access control origin header is present. So you get such errors if you don't have course. Okay, that's because your API is running in different port, your client is running in different port. So browsers by default do not allow such access for security reasons. Okay, so to avoid that, during the development mode, we can apply this course. For that, we can write a small check here. If process.env.node.env, okay, which is, you can see it's a development at the moment. So if node.env is development mode, we want to apply course. And you can pass the configuration origin, and that's going to be, let's use backticks. Okay, so http:// in fact we can use the client URL variable here. Okay, so let's use $curly brace process.env.client URL. Okay, so when we are developing locally, we allow access to this origin. And one more thing I would like to tell you, that this works only between browsers to browsers. Okay, so it doesn't have any effect for Postman. Postman can still be used, doesn't matter which port that is. So this is only for browser to browser communication. Okay, so with this we are pretty good. We have the course as well. Now we can continue building this application further. I'll see you in the next lecture. Now it is time for us to connect our Node.js API with MongoDB. And there are two options. One, you can use online service like Mongo Atlas, and another one is installing MongoDB locally in your computer. And I highly recommend you to install MongoDB locally in your computer and use Robo3T. That will enable you to visually see your database. Okay, so you can see I have existing database here, so I can go to the database and check out the blogs or users, the categories. So this is how you can visually see the actual Mongo database with this software Robo3T. So I highly recommend you to install MongoDB locally and install Robo3T so that you can see your database like so, and you can even make some changes, edit the document, and so on. The reason I'm not going to cover the installation of MongoDB in this course is because it really depends on your operating system. If you're on Mac, if you're on Windows, it can be really different. So I'll leave that up to you. Just if you need to do some Googling, please do so, because you do it once. It can be sometimes difficult, but you do it once, and that is it. You have to do just once. Okay, but if you don't want to go through all that, you can still use online services. So in this video, I'll show you how you can use Mongo Atlas, and let's create a new account in Mongo Atlas. Even if you have existing account, I recommend you to create a new account, because even with your existing account, you won't be able to create more than one app. If you want to use for more than one app, you have to pay. So might as well create a new account. There are a few issues you will run into when you using Mongo Atlas for the first time. So just to make sure that everyone is able to follow along, I'm going to create a new account. Okay, even though I had existing one. So just create a new Gmail account if you have to, and let's start from scratch so that we have new email and then new account with Mongo Atlas. Okay, let's see what happens. I don't want to enter my phone number. There is it wasn't even All right, now we can start. Choose your own cloud provider. Okay, AWS. Okay, click here to customize your cluster space. Okay, I don't think I get more than 512 free, so let's click next. Give your cluster name. Okay, name, let's say SEO blog. Okay, create cluster. All right, I don't know how long it's go. 7 to 10 minutes. Okay, I have to take a break. So let's come back in 10 minutes. I'm back, and it took me way longer than 7 to 10 minutes. It took me like 4 hours. So hopefully it didn't happen to you, but if it happened to you, I'm sorry, but that's how MongoDB Atlas works. So it's like I told you, it's always good to have MongoDB installed locally in your computer. But yeah, so if you can't get up and running with this one, maybe just try it the next day. Okay, so I had to wait for like 4 hours, but finally I'm here. Let's go and start with this one. But before we do this, one more thing I would like to tell you. Next time you want to come and log into your MongoDB Atlas, you might end up in some other links. So just make sure you are in cloud.mongodb.com. Okay, otherwise you don't even see the sign in page because MongoDB, the Atlas, this website is crazy. Anyways, so let's go and click connect. Okay, so what we need to do is, first thing, we need to whitelist our connection. So add your current IP address. Let's click here. So it looks like it automatically detects my IP. So let's click add IP. All right, next we're going to create a MongoDB user. This is going to be admin user. So give a name, let's call it blog admin. Let's give password of 123456 Ryan. Okay, now let's click on choose a connection method. Pick this option, connect to your application. So we need to copy this string, so let's hit copy, and let's go back to our project, and let's go to our env file, and let's create another environment variable here. Let's call it database equals to quote and then paste. Okay, so it is all one line. Okay, so make sure you have them in quotes, and we need to update this password field as well. 123456 Ryan. Okay, now with this we should be able to start using MongoDB Atlas as our database. With this change, I guess we need to restart our server. So let's start the server. So I come across this issue a few times. Previously I was running another app on the same port, and sometimes this gives me such errors, so I just use kill all node. And you can also do p kill -8000 if you want to stop the process that is running on port 8000, and then just write node. So let's try running our server back again. npm start. Beautiful. Now let's go to our server.js and let's connect to the database as well. First thing, we need to require Mongoose. So const Mongoose equals to require Mongoose, and then let's do it here. Database mongoose dot connect. We get this connect method with Mongoose, and we can even have a look in the Mongoose official docs. So to connect, first we need to pass the URL string, and then we can pass this additional configuration. So let's actually copy, and let's put here. So Mongoose connect. Now this time this URL we have available in the .env file, so we can grab that process.env.database. okay, so that is the URL string, the first argument. The second argument, okay, something happened here. Use new URL parser. Okay, so that has to be true. And there are a few more configuration options which we're going to write here so that we don't see the nasty errors in the console later. Okay, so use create index, we set that to true, and then use find and modify false. That's how we can connect with MongoDB using a Mongoose connect method. And this gives us the promise. So we can use then and use arrow function, and we can console log. So console log, let's say database connected. All right. Now, if we have done everything correctly, then we should see this in the console. Let's give it a try. As you can see, we see database connected. That means we have successfully connected our application with MongoDB Atlas that is running in the cloud. Beautiful. Let me stop the server, restart one more time. Okay, as you can see, it's running in port, and then after a few seconds you see database connected. Okay, so now we can continue with the next lecture. In this lesson, let's go through connecting to MongoDB locally as well. So let's go to env, and I want to keep this in case we might need to come back to it later. And for those of you who are using Mongo Atlas, obviously it's perfectly fine, you can continue with this one. Okay, so let's rename this one to database, let's say cloud. Okay, just so that it is identical. Database cloud. Let's come back to server and let's replace with database. Okay, let's come back here, let's restart. Okay, everything's working fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another one, and that's going to be database local, and this is for those of you who are using MongoDB locally. Okay, so to connect locally, it's really easy. MongoDB //localhost 27017 / the name of your database. Let's call it SEO blog. Okay, so this is the URL string to connect to MongoDB locally if you have installed locally. Now let's try this one as well. Let's replace this with database local, save, come back here, stop the server, start again, and we should see database connected this time as well. So this way, whether you are using database locally or using the Mongo Atlas, either way you are able to connect to your application with MongoDB. All right, now we're in a good position to continue further. In a bigger application, we need to plan ahead how we're going to structure our project so that it is easy to scale as we grow, right? So what we need to do now is, as you can see, we have everything written in server.js. So the first thing I would like to do is move our routes to a separate routes folder. So here inside our backend folder, let's create a new folder. Let's call it routes. And because our application is going to be mainly a blogging application, we need a blogs route. So let's go ahead and create a new routes file called blog.js. Okay, and here the first thing we need is we need express. So const express equals to require express, and we need a router from the express. So const router equals to express dot router. So it's a capital R. Okay, so we use express router. Then we can handle any incoming routes. For example, let's say router dot get. If we get a request on /, then we can use a callback function. In this case, we're going to use arrow function. So here what we can do is whatever we did earlier in the server.js file, any incoming route we handle like so using this arrow function. Let's copy this one and let's put here. Okay, so any request coming on /, we respond with the time. Okay, now we need to use this in our server.js. So first we need to export. So module.exports equals to router. Okay, so this router and any other routes you create later, they will all be exported from here using module.exports. We add this router to this exports object, which is in the root of the node process. Okay, so we export here. Now we're going to import this one in server.js. So let's bring in routes. Bring routes. So const, let's call it blog routes equals to require routes. So /routes/blog, and now we can use this as a middleware. Come down here in the middleware, so let's call it routes middleware, and then we can use this use method to apply any middleware. So app.use blog routes. So this way we can apply these routes as a middleware to our Express app. Get rid of these routes because we have already moved to its own folder, and let's give it a try. Make sure it works. Okay, all we have done is move the route from here to its own directory, and we bring that in and use as a middleware. Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, let me restart one more time just to make sure. Okay, let's go here. Let's go to localhost 8000, and you can see we get time as a response. Because we are building API, it makes sense to have all our endpoints starting with API, right? It makes sense. So what we can do is we can come back to our project, and here we can say /API as a first argument, and then the second argument is the routes. Now this way, any routes you create here, at the moment we have only one, but later you might have /blogs and anything else. There will be quite a lot. So all of them will have API prefixed, okay, because we have applied API here. Now this way, this route will become /API because we have prefixed with API. Okay, now if you give it a try, you see time, but if you go to /, we don't get anything. Okay, so let's make sure all our endpoints will be prefixed by API. Okay, just as a good practice. Just like we moved our routes from server.js to its own directory, we can also create controllers and pass all this functionality to controllers for handling, because at the moment we have only one route, but later we will have many, and each routes will need to do a lot of work, right? They need to go to database, they need to fetch all the blogs, they might need to create blogs, they might need to associate with users, there will be a lot to do. So it will be a very bad idea to write everything inside routes, and there will be many routes here. So as a good practice, let's create controllers and let's give this functionality for controller to handle. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's create a new folder, controllers, and here let's create blog.js. All we want to do at the moment is we just want to move this logic to controller. Copy and delete from here. This controller method, which we're going to create soon, let's call it time. Okay, and let's move that here. So exports, just like we did earlier, module.exports. To export more than one controller method here, you can just use exports and then just append to this empty object. Okay, so exports time equals to, you just paste the callback function, the arrow function that you created earlier. Okay, it is simple as this. Routes, we had that callback function here. Now what we did is we just moved from routes to controller, and we just added to this exports object so that it is available. It is exported from this file, and now we can import here. So let's say const, let's import from controller/blog, and we want to import time because that is what we are exporting from here. Okay, so we export from here, we import here, and we use that as a second argument to this route. So any request coming to this endpoint will be handled by time controller method. We will be adding more routes here and more controllers. It's going to be pretty straightforward. Okay, let's give it a try. Requires a callback function but got object undefined. So you will see this error quite a lot when you're building this application. So what this means is we are not exporting or importing the right way. Okay, so let's see what we did. So here I can see my first error is I'm not using the require. So let me wrap this inside require. And then another thing I noticed is we need to get outside of this folder directory and go inside the controller. So we need double dots. So anytime you come across that error, make sure you are exporting properly and you are importing properly. Okay, so in my case it was a silly mistake here. We didn't use require, so we got that error. So let's see if that fixed. Yeah, that looks good. Now let's try one more time. Of course it works. Before doing anything further, I would like to build the authentication system so that we can start registering the user, log them in so that they can create new blogs and so on, right? So let's work on the authentication. The first thing we want to do is we want to create a user model, and the user model will have a schema that will tell what sort of fields will be there to create a new user. For example, we might need a username, name, email, the data type, and is it required or not, things like that. So let's go ahead and create a user model. So here, let's create a new folder. Let's call it models. We're going to create user model, user.js. Let's start by bringing Mongoose because we're going to create a Mongoose schema. So const Mongoose equals to require Mongoose. We also need to bring crypto, which is a core Node.js module, and we're going to use it to hash the password later. So let's bring in crypto equals to require crypto. Okay, now let's go ahead create a user schema. So const user schema equals to new mongoose dot schema with capital S. Okay, so this is a function and this takes the object as an argument. So here you can write all the properties. For example, the username. When we create a user, we're going to have a username property, right? And we can specify the type. So it's going to be a string type, trim true. Any white space will be trimmed out. Required true, so it is required. If we don't provide the username, then Mongoose will give us an error. Max length, let's say 32 is the maximum length. Unique true, because our username should be unique. Later on we will implement the user profile system, and by default we will give all the users the username. For example, domain.com/profile/username. So unless they update the username, we will give them some random string as the username. So unique true, index true. So index true, what it will do is we will be making a lot of database queries based on the username. So that's why we want to make it indexable. So index true, lowercase true. Okay, so that's it for username. Let's copy just to make things easier, comma, paste here, and this time let's make it name. So name type will be string, trim true, required true, and max length 32. Okay, you can make name required, but we're going to use validator anyway, so let's leave it as it is. Okay, let's copy, let's paste here, and let's use this for email. So the type is going to be string, trim true, required true, unique. Make sure email is unique. Maximum length 32. Maybe we don't want to specify that. Say lowercase true. Profile. So the type is going to be string. Required, it's going to be true. Profile as well as the password. We're not going to save the plain password in the database. We're going to save the hashed version of it. So we're going to use hashed password, and the type is going to be string and required true. And if you have worked with some other package like bcrypt, you must have used just password, not the hashed password, but we're going to use crypto in this project, and I recommend you to exactly follow along the way we're doing it, because it will be much easier later on. Okay, so do not change the fields, just continue with this one. When you finish the project, obviously you are free to make any modification. All right, we're going to use the salt as well. Salt will be used to define how strong you're going to hash the password. Salt will have some numeric value, so we will be generating salt as well. At the moment we can just say the number type. Then we want about as well, so about is going to be type string. Then we're going to have the role as well, because we will be having role based authentication system. Type number, trim true. We're also going to have photo. It will be the type of buffer. We're going to save photo in the binary data format in the database, and MongoDB is perfect for saving binary data. Photo will have the content type as well, and that's going to be a string. So it's going to be something like image/png, image/jpeg, and so on. And finally, we're going to also use reset password link. Okay, we will be using this much later in the course. We will be implementing the forgot password and reset password functionality. So at that time, we will generate a token and save in the database, and then we will email that token to the user. When they click on that link, they will be redirected to the React application, and then from there React app will send the token back to our server, and then we're going to check if that token is exactly the one we have in the database. Okay, now it can be confusing at the moment, but don't worry, we will go through that in depth so you'll get complete understanding. But at the moment, just have it here. Reset password link. This is going to be the data type of string, and then by default it will be empty. This is our user schema. We have username, name, email, profile, hashed password, salt, about, role, photo, and reset password link. Finally, let's also add timestamp. Timestamp we're not going to add here. Instead, we're going to pass here. So as you can see, this is a Mongoose schema. So this is the first argument, the entire object. Okay, and then the second argument here, the timestamp. Timestamp, and we say true. So this way we don't need to create ourselves manually. It will automatically add created and updated date in the database. With all that, we're done with our schema. So what we can do is we can module.exports equals to mongoose.model. So what we're going to call this model, we're going to call user with capital U. Okay, this is a convention to indicate that this is a user model, and then user schema. So this is our Mongoose schema for user model. Now we can use this user model to create a new user and save in the database, but there is a bit more to do here because we will be getting the plain password and we need to save as a hashed password. Just realize that it should be just max, no length, just max, and it should be all lowercase. All right, so to make that change, let's make it max, all lowercase, and that is it. So we're going to do some more here in the following lecture. To create a new user, we need to set up routes and controllers. So let's begin with routes. So let's go to routes folder, and we can pretty much copy this code just to make things easier. And let's create a new file called auth.js, and let's paste here. To create a new user, we can call that sign up. Any request coming to the sign up, we can handle using the sign up method in controller. So we can create this method in controller, auth controller, and we can use that here. So this is our routes. Let's not forget to bring this in server, just like we did earlier for blocks. Auth routes from routes auth, and we can use that as a middleware. Auth routes. Okay, so we have the routes. Now let's go ahead and create auth controllers. So here, let's create a new file. Let's call it auth.js, and we need to create this sign up method, right? So let's go ahead, export sign up. To create a new user, we need the user's name, email, and password, and we will get that information from the request body. So at the moment we will be using Postman, and later we will be using React. So either way, we need to send this information in the request body so that we can create a new user. So let's destructure this information from request body. So we need name, email, and password. Just to give it a try, let's respond with the same information. Let's send it back to the user just to give it a try before we save in the database. Okay, so response.json. So we send the JSON response with the name of user. That's going to be the key, and the value is going to be name, email, and password. Let's try it out. Let's go to Postman, and let's make a post request. So this has to be post, and the URL is going to be https://localhost:8000/API/signup. Now we need to go to the body because we need to send the body, the request body. All right. So here, click on raw and select the data JSON, application JSON. All right. Now we can write JSON data here. Name, let's say Ryan, email ryan@gmail.com, and password, let's just write password. Now we can send this information to our backend to create a new user. Now before we do that, we need to make sure we need to go to headers and make sure the content type is application JSON. Make sure you have this ticked. Let's give it a try. Let's hit send. Okay, we didn't get any response. Let's have a look here. So this has to be post. Okay, we are posting the data. So make sure you have this post, not get. and this has to be HTTP, not S. All right, let's give it a try. And as you can see, the same information we send to the backend is sent back to us as a JSON response. Now what we need to do is, instead of sending the information back to ourselves, we need to save this information in the database. So we can start creating new users and save them in the database. Before we save users in the database, we need to do a couple of checks, such as validation. So we need to make sure that name, email, and password fields are required. Email should be type of email, password should be at least 6 characters long, and things like that. So that is validation. Next, we need to hash the password before we save in the database. And then third, we need to make sure that user with the same email does not already exist in the database. So we need to make some checks before we are able to save the user in the database. So the first thing we need to do is install some npm packages. Npm install Express Validator. We're going to use Express Validator for validation. And then we need JSON Web Token to generate JSON Web Token so that we can send that to our client, whether it's Postman or React, and that will allow us to implement authentication. Okay, and then Express JWT package as well. So this will check if the generated token is still valid or not. And we also going to use a package called Formidable. This will allow us to receive form data, because we will be sending form data from the client side to the server side. So that is different than JSON data type. That is a form data type. So to handle that, we need this package Formidable. We need Lodash as well. So we're going to use few helper methods from Lodash library. And we need few more packages for saving our blog in the database. So let's install them as well. Slugify and string-strip-html. Okay, so these packages will be used to create a new blog. Let me hit enter. So while it's happening, let me show you why we need Slugify. Okay, so if you go to visit any page, because our application will be SEO, so let's go to colorado.com just to give it a try. So for example, you can see this is the blog title, right? So if you click here, you see we have the domain name /articles/ the blog title, and it is all lowercase, and it has the dash. Whenever there is space has been replaced with dash, and all of them have been lowercase. Okay, so this is a slug. So we need to generate slug for each blog post we save in the database, and then we will query the database based on the slug. We're not going to use ID. In most of the time you see something like this. On most of the tutorials you see articles/ID, and we find the blogs based on the ID, but that will not be SEO, and this is not a good user experience as well. Okay, so we're going to generate such slugs, and for that reason we had this package installed, slug. And then we have this string strip HTML. So what it will do is, when you create a new blog, for example, this is the starting few lines of your blog. So these few lines, the first few lines, we can take them to generate a meta description. Okay, that is extremely important for SEO. So if you go to view page source, you see this page has this title. So the domain name and then the blog title, you can see as a title. You can see meta description. Okay, so this is HTML, and you see in this tutorial you will learn to properly set up Next.js frontend and so on. So these first few 160 characters have been extracted from the blog body, automatically saved in the database as a meta description. That way, when you render your blog, they will have meta description as well. So very well ready for search engine optimization. To implement a user sign up, the first thing we need to do is we need to validate. For example, when user sending data like a name, email, and password, we need to run some validation that will check if the password has at least 6 characters, if a name is there, it's not empty, if the email is a valid email, right? So we need to perform those checks. So let's begin by creating a validator method so that we can use that validator in our routes. So when we are signing up the user, we get requests on this endpoint, and then we run some validation here. And then if that validation pass, only then we will execute this controller method. So to create a validator, we can create a separate folder. Let's call it validators. Yeah. And here we need to create a file called index.js. And let's also create a file for auth.js. So here we're going to put all authentication related validations. Okay, so first let's bring in check from require express validator. Okay, and then we can write our check. So we're going to export it so that we can use in routes. So exports user sign up validator, and this is going to be an array. Okay, so here we can write whatever we want to check. For example, we want to check the name. Check, and first we want to check the name. Okay, not is empty. So we want to make sure there is a name and it is not empty. Okay, and if it is empty, we will send the message with message name is required. Okay, so this is how we check the name. Now let's copy and make sure you have comma here, and let's paste it down here. Now this one we can use for email. So email also we want let's make sure this is the type of email. So is email. So this will check if the data we are receiving is the type of email, your name at gmail.com. That structure it will check, so you don't need to write a regular expression here with this one. Okay, so is email, and if not, we send the message, but must be a valid email address. And we also want to validate password, so let's copy one more time, make sure you add comma here, paste here, and this time we check for password, and we want to make sure it has at least 6 characters. Okay, so is length, here we say minimum 6, and with message password must be at least 6 characters long. Okay, so this is our sign up validator. So this is our validator, user sign up validator. Now when this validator runs, if we don't get the name, email, or password, anything like that, so these messages will be sent as an error. Okay, so how do we send the error? We can write that here in the index, and the reason I'm writing here is because later we will have many validators. For example, user.js, auth, blog, there will be quite a few, but you don't have to keep writing the same errors loop. So we just write here and we can reuse this one. So let's write here const, we can grab the validation result from require express validator. Okay, so if there were any errors during this check, we will get them here. Okay, so we can export, let's call it run validation, and because this is a middleware, we need request, response, and next. So next is a callback function. Okay, so here first we get errors from validation result, and we pass the request. So we will be getting the request name, email, and password in the request, and then we check here if no errors dot is empty. So if errors is not empty, that means we have an error, right? So if we have an error, we want to return that error. So return response with status of 422 JSON error, and that's going to be errors.array. Okay, we get the errors array, but we want to send only the first one. So this way we don't have to loop through errors in the front end, which can be really annoying. So as soon as there is any error, we give that error the very first one, and then we just say message. We want to send the very first error message with the status code of 422, which is, I think it's unprocessable entity. Okay, so once we do that, we want to execute this callback next so that our application doesn't get halt. So this way you write a middleware. Now we can use this in routes. So let's go to routes and let's bring those validators here. So const run validation from require validators. Because it is an index.js file, we don't need to write anything, we just say validators. And we also need signup validator. So let's write here user signup validator. Make sure this is the right name, user signup validator. Okay, from validators/auth. Okay, so now that we have our validators, we can apply here as a middleware. First we say user signup validator, then we run validation. So if the validation is passed, only then the code in the signup controller method will be executed. Okay, so once we have applied all this, we can give it a try just to make sure that validation is working. Okay, so let's try making a request without name. Okay, you get the error, name is required. Beautiful. If you remove the add from the email, send must be a valid email address. Beautiful. And if you give a password less than 6 characters, you get password must be at least 6. Okay, so our validation is working beautifully. Now we can continue further. So to sign up user, first thing we had to do was validation, and we did that in the last section. Now in this section, we're going to implement the password, so hashing of the password. Okay, so let's begin. Let's go to our models. We're going to write this in our user model. Okay, so on this schema, for example, in our case, we have the user schema. So in this user schema, we can add methods, and we can even use something called virtual field. Okay, so what is virtual is that, for example, we want to get password from the client side. However, we want to save the hashed password. We don't want to save anything as password in the database. Okay, so virtual fields just exist there. It doesn't get persisted in the database, but it exists there so that we can do some work. So in our case, we're going to grab the password from the client and hash that plain password and save in the database as hashed password. Okay, so here user schema dot virtual. So here the virtual field is going to be password. Okay, and then here let me bring it down just a bit. So the virtual field password, we're going to use two methods, set and get. Okay, so we're going to use a function, and make sure you use the regular function, not the arrow function. Okay, because arrow functions don't have their own scope for this keyword, so that will not work. So make sure you use the regular function. So function password, and we're going to create a temporary variable called underscore password. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to generate salt. So it will be used for a hashing algorithm. Okay, so once we do that, we need to encrypt password. Okay, so first let's do here this dot underscore password equals to password. This salt equals to this dot make salt. So we don't have this method yet. We're going to create soon that will generate the salt. Okay, so we need to create this method, make salt, encrypt the password. We're going to take this hashed password and we're going to populate its value with the hashed version. Okay, so this dot encrypt password, we're going to create this method as well, and we're going to pass the plain password, and this will hash the password and save that value in the hashed password, and this is what's going to be saved in the database. Okay, so this is how we're going to set, and then we have this get. Also we need a function, and this will return this dot underscore password. So we need to create these two methods, make salt and encrypt password. Okay, so on this user schema we can create methods and add to it using this user schema dot method. Okay, methods equals to, we create an object, and here we're going to create these functions, and we need to just separate them with comma. Okay, so first one, let's call it encrypt password. Okay, that's the one we need. Make sure to use the regular function. Okay, so function password, and first of all we're going to check if we're not getting any password from the client, then we want to we can't do anything, we just return empty string. Okay, and then we try, and then we catch any error. If there's any error, we just return empty string. So what we want to do is we want to try to hash the password, the plain password. Okay, so we're going to use this crypto that comes with Node.js by default. So return crypto, and we have a couple of methods available with this module. So crypto dot create hmac. Okay, now all this is also in the Node.js official website, so you can also go there if you are interested in this crypto module, but I'm just going to type it down here, and you can also grab this code from the source code if you find it a bit difficult to type along. So the hashing algorithm we're going to use is SHA1. So that's the first argument, and the second argument is going to be this dot salt. Then we get another method, update, and update the password, and then digest hex. So this is encrypt password method. Now we need another method called make salt. So right here, make sure you have comma, and then let's create this method as well, make salt function, and we're going to return math.round. We're going to use new date, value of multiply by math.random plus string. So this will give us some random numerical value that we can use here when we're hashing the password. So we have got two methods here, encrypt password and make salt. We also need one more method during the user sign in process. So while we are here, let's write that down so that we don't have to come back again. Okay, so that is going to be authenticate. So we're going to use this method to authenticate the user. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to compare the password. So when we get the plain password from the client, we're going to take that and encrypt that plain password and compare with the hashed version of it, which we have in the database. And if they match, that means we can authenticate that user because their password match, right? So this will be used during the user sign in. So this is also going to be a function, plain text or plain password we're going to get from the user. Okay, let's not forget to add comma here. All right, so we're going to return, it's going to return the value that is going to be either true or false. Okay, so this encrypt password, plain text. So we're going to hash this password that is coming from the client side, and we're going to compare using this triple equal operator to this dot hashed password. Okay, so when we compare, we will get either true or false. So if it is true, then the user will be authenticated, otherwise they will not be authenticated. So this is it. So we have a schema, we have the virtual field to handle the password and save as hashed password, and then we have these few methods in the user schema. One is to authenticate, to compare the password, another is to hash the password, and another is to generate salt. Okay, so with all this, we're pretty much done with the user schema. Now we can go ahead in the next lecture, create a new user and save in the database. That means we will be working in the Auth controller in the next lecture. Let's go ahead and sign up a user so that we can save the user in the database. But before we do that, you must have not forgot that our users will have the username. Okay, so that will be automatically generated when they sign up for the first time. Okay, so to generate unique usernames, we're going to use a package called a short ID. Okay, so let's install npm install short ID. Let's start the server once again, and let's import that here. Const, first of all, let's bring user. Const user equals to require models slash user, and const short ID with capital I equals to require short ID. Now to save the user, the very first thing we need to do is we need to check if the user already exists. So if this user who is trying to sign up, if that email is already in the database to identify the uniqueness. Okay, so if that user with that email already exists, then we cannot sign up again, right? So first we need to check. So let's get rid of this for now. First of all, we check using user.find1. So we get this find one method with Mongoose that will help us find a particular user from the database. So in this case, we're going to find based on email. Okay, so email, and the value that we're going to get that from request.body.email. So we're going to find the user based on email, and then the email we will be getting is from the request body. So once we do that, we can use this execute method. Okay, so this is a method that comes with Mongoose. So this execute method takes a function as an argument. Okay, so we're going to use arrow function here. So in this function, we get either error or user. Okay, so when this method runs, that will either find the user. If it doesn't find the user, then it will give us the error. Okay, so here first we need to handle the error. First, let's check for user. So if user, then we need to send the error message that sorry, the email is taken, right? So if user, if we found the user, we're going to return with the status of 400, and the JSON response we're going to send by the name of error, and the value is going to be, let's say, email is taken. If the user doesn't already exist, then we can go ahead and create a new user, right? So to create a new user, we need name, email, password, which comes from the client side. In addition to that, we need to generate the username as well as profile. So if you go have a look in the user model, username, name, email, profile, you see it's going to be the URL. So what we can do here is to create a new user. First of all, let's grab the name, email, password from the request body. Okay, name, email, password, and I'm using the object destructuring here. Let username equals to, we're going to use that short ID package, short ID, capital I, and it has this method called generate. Okay, so that will generate unique short IDs. Okay, so that is going to be the username. Now let's create a profile as well. Now the profile is going to be whatever the domain name of our client-side application. For example, it might be seoblog.com. So that is going to be the URL followed by profile / the username. Okay, so let profile, we need the client URL. So let's have a look in the env if we already have one. Yes, we have. Beautiful. Okay, so we can use this. So let profile, now I'm going to use backticks because I need to embed some variables here. So $, curly brace, and here I'm going to write process.env.client URL. So that will give me the client URL. Now to generate a profile URL, I'm going to use that / profile / username. Okay, again $, username. Okay, so this is how we generate the profile URL as well. Now we can create a new user. So let's call it let new user equals to new user model, new instance, and we pass the argument name, email, password, profile, username, and then we can save this user. So new user.save. Okay, so when we save, to check whether it has been successfully saved, so error or success. So first of all, we always need to make sure we check the error, we handle the error properly. So if error, return response with status of 400.json. We give the error message error, otherwise we return with the JSON response. Okay, so now here what we can do is we can actually send the user who has been just created, we can send his username, email, and so on, but that is not really important because this is just a sign up process. So all we need to do is we need to send a message saying that okay, you have signed up successfully. So let's send message with the value of, let's say, sign up success, please sign in. So this way we can sign up a new user. First we find if any user exists, we give this error message, otherwise we create a new user, we save that user, and we handle the error if there is any, otherwise we respond with this message. But just for now, let me just comment this out and let me actually respond with the actual user that has been created. Okay, just for now, and user that's going to be success. Okay, so whatever we get here, we can return that. Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, looks like something's gone. Cannot find modules user. Okay, we need to go one step up, models, and then user. Beautiful. All right, let's give it a try. Let's try signing up without name. That works. Beautiful. Now let's pass everything right, name, email, and password, and let's try creating this user. Let's hit send. Okay, so we got this huge error object. Okay, after some debugging and after some console log, everything was working fine. The issue was in our user model. So in our user model, we have salt, and that is the type number I have given. So it should be string. Okay, so with number, it doesn't seem to work. So make this change, and then if you give it a try, it should work. Now let's try. And you see, we get the newly created user here. We can also have a look in the database. So if you have Robo3D installed, you can open that. And let's go to our database and then click on collections users. And here we have the newly created user. Okay, you see the username is automatically generated, password is hashed, profile has been created. Beautiful, right? So if you are using Mongo Atlas, then you should be able to see the data like that. In a similar way, you should be able to access your database visually and even modify. Okay, so maybe we should give that a try as well. But before we do that, let me come back here in our controller, and for sign up, we don't want to respond with the user data because it doesn't have any use case. So I'm going to just comment it out. Okay, and then just bring this back in. So the next time user sign up, we will give them this message: sign up success, please sign in. All right, so let's give it a try with Mongo Atlas as well. Those of you who are using Mongo Atlas and those who are new to it and want to see how they can browse through the Atlas dashboard. Okay, so let me quickly go to .env. Let me grab the database cloud. Let me go back to my server.js here, and temporarily I'm going to switch this to database cloud. Okay, and I'm going to restart the server just to make sure everything is right. After a while we should see no. Okay, network failed, connect to server. Now let's see if that works. Let's give it a try. Okay, now it's working. I don't know how it started working. I don't think I've made any change here. Maybe it was because I whitelisted all the IP address including my one. So hopefully you don't have to go through this trouble, but sometimes it just seems to be unavoidable with Mongo Atlas, unfortunately. Hopefully you were able to up and running. Now let's give it a try one last time. So this user is saved in the local database, so we should be able to run it one more time. And sign up success, please sign in. That means we should have a new user created in here. Let's give it a try. Let's go to collections. And right, so this way you are able to see the data visually in MongoDB Atlas as well. Now we will implement user sign in, and the first thing you will notice is that I have switched my database to use my local MongoDB. So if you are using cloud, you can continue using that, otherwise you can switch to local database. Okay, so let's go ahead and implement user sign in as well. And the first thing you want to do is start with validators. Okay, so let's go to auth. We have a sign up validator. We can copy pretty much and then rename it. Let's call it sign in. And while signing in, we will require email and password. So we can get rid of the name. And this is it. We can save this and we can create a new route for user sign in. So let's go to routes, auth. Let's copy, paste right here. So it's going to be route of post method with sign in, and the validator we're going to use is sign in, and then the method we're going to create is also sign in. Okay, so let's import this one from the validator, and we need to create this sign in controller method. Okay, so let's go and create this sign-in controller method. Let's go to auth, and right here exports sign-in request response. So during the sign-in process, we need to perform a couple of things. The first one is we need to check if user exists. So if user doesn't exist, then we can ask them to sign up. Next thing, we need to authenticate. So the user's email and password should match. So when we get the password from user, we will compare that with the hashed version we have stored in the database, and if that match, then we can authenticate. And we already have the authenticate method. We have already written here in the schema. Okay, so that will check the password. And after that, if all that is good, then we can generate a JSON web token. So this token will include the user ID and the secret that will be used. So you will see how it all works. Let's begin with the check first. First of all, we want to grab the user email and password from request body. So let's destructure from request body email and password, and then we check user.find1 method. We use this method, and then we want to find the user by email. So we don't need to say like this, because if the key value is same, we can just leave it like so. So email, then we can use this execute method that comes with Mongoose, and here we can use a function. So error or user. So we will either get error or user. So if error or no user, so if there is error or no user, then we can return response with status of 400 with JSON, and we can send the error message saying user with that email does not exist, please sign up, something like that. Then we can try to authenticate. Okay, so let's move this here. So if not user dot authenticate, we pass the password. So this password is a plain password that we get from the client. So we give that password to this authenticate method we have in the user model, and that will give us either true or false. Okay, so if it is not true, so if the authentication failed, then we want to again return the error response. So let's copy and paste here, and here we can write email and password do not match. Now if the user doesn't exist and authentication also passed, then we can go ahead and generate the JSON web token and give to the client so that we can authenticate the user. And to do that, we need to first bring in some packages. For example, we have already installed the JWT. Okay, so let's bring that in. So const JWT equals to require JSON web token. We also need the express JWT package. So const express JWT, and this will help us check if the token has expired and if it is valid. Okay, so require express JWT. All right, now before we generate a token, we need to create a secret key. So we can go to env file and let's write here JWT underscore secret, and this can be anything. Okay, just a random secret key that no one can guess. Okay, so I'm going to just type some letters and numbers. It can be anything. All right, just so that people cannot guess, it is a secret. and this secret will be used to generate this token. Okay, so let's create a variable called token, and we're going to use this JWT package, use this sign method to create signed token. Okay, so here we're going to use ID, user ID, to create a token. Okay, so ID, that's going to be user._ID. So the user that we found in the database, the one that is already registered user. So we take that user's ID to create a signed token, as well as separated by comma, we're going to use the secret key as well. So process.env.jwt_secret, and we also give the expiry date. Okay, so you can set expiry of 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, as long as you want. Okay, so let's do it for a day. Expire in, let's say, 1 day. So this is how we can create a signed token using the user ID, JWT secret, and the expiry date. Now we can set this token in the cookie as well. So response.cookie with the name of token, and the value is going to be this token. Okay, and we also set the expiry here as well. Expires in 1 day. Then once we do all this, we want to give the JSON response with the user information as well as token, so that our client, whether it's React or Postman, they can store that token somewhere and also store the user information. So next time when they make request to our backend, they can send that token and we can receive that token, and then we can validate that yes, the user is authenticated. So let's first create a user object that we want to send as a JSON response. Okay, so what we want to send is, we want to send the ID, we want to send the username, name, email, and role as well. Okay, so we want to send all this information of the user. Okay, so return response JSON, we give the token, and we also give the user response. So let's save. Now we can give this a try. So let's go to Postman and let's make a request to sign in. Okay, so we already have a user by the name of ryan@gmail.com. So the user is already here. So let's try logging in. Let's change this to sign in. Let's make sure it is post. Let's go to headers, make sure we have the content type application JSON. Let's go to body. Let's pick the raw data application JSON from here, and we send the email and password so that we can log in. Okay, sorry, it should be HTTP. All right, let's try it. It should be a S. I'm missing S here. Just a second. It expires. Let's save and let's give it a try. And you see, we get the token, the JSON web token, as well as user information. Beautiful. But we don't want to respond with hashed password and salt. So what we can do here is we can come back here, and the user, let's send only this information instead of the entire user that we got from the database. Let's just send ID, username, name, email, and role. Okay, let's save and let's try one more time. And this time we get ID, username, name, email, as well as token. Beautiful. Now we can use this token whenever there is a need for us to access some protected routes. So in the coming lectures, we're going to learn how to protect certain routes, how those routes can be accessed by those users who have the valid token. Now we can sign in user. If there is no password or wrong password, we have the validation also. Beautiful. Now what we want to do is, before we move to our client side and start building our front end, let's add few more controller methods such as a sign out and require sign in middleware, so that we can see how we can protect routes. Okay, so let's create this exports sign out method. Okay, so request response. On sign out, all we want to do is we want to response clear cookie. So if you remember, when we generated a token, we added that token in the cookie, okay, in the response object by the name of cookie. But when user sign out, we want to clear that from the response. Okay, so response clear cookie, we give the cookie name that is token. All right, we can send the JSON response with the message sign out success. And finally, let's also create one middleware just so that we can see how we can protect routes. We will come back to it later. Obviously, we will have auth routes, auth middleware, admin middleware, but at the moment, let's just implement this require sign in middleware. Okay, so exports require sign in, and we're going to use this express JWT package we have. And all we need to do is we need to pass the secret, and our secret is process.env.jwt secret. So this is our middleware, and we're going to apply this in our routes. So any routes we want to protect only for the logged in users, we will apply this as a middleware. And what it will do is it will check the incoming tokens secret, and it will compare with the secret that we have in our env file. And if that match, and if the token haven't expired, then this will return true and user will have access to it. So this package behind the scene, it will automatically check for the token expiry. So we don't need to do anything. We just need to pass the secret. Now with this, we can go back to our routes and create route for sign out. Let's create another route just to give it a try, see how this works. Okay, so let's go to routes and let's create router.get. This is going to be get method to sign out and sign out. Simple as that. We can bring that from the controller. Okay, so this way we can sign the user out. Let's also create, just for test, let's create a router.get. Let's say this is our secret page. Okay, and we can write the method here, request response, let's say response JSON, you have access to secret page. For example, let's say this is our secret page, only the logged in users to have access to. So for that, what we can do is we can use that middleware, require sign in. So here in routes, we can bring that from the auth controller, and we can apply that as a middleware here. So this way, any routes you want to protect for only logged in users, you apply it like so. Now let's give it a try. First, let's sign out. Let's make sign out. Let's make it a get request. Let's hit send, and you see message sign out success. Now let's try accessing this secret page, and you see we got error, unauthorized error, no authorization token was found, because this is a protected route now. So only if we have a token and a valid token, then we will have access to this page. Now let's sign in and let's send the token in the headers, and let's see if we can then access this route. Okay, so let's sign in one more time with the same information with post method, and we get that token. So what you can do is you can copy this token and we can send this token in the headers. So here, go to headers and write authorization, and you put here token, but make sure it is a bearer token. Okay, so BEARER space and paste that token in here. Now this way, any request we make, we are sending this token at the same time in the headers. Now let's make request to secret. Previously we had unauthorized error when we tried to access this route, but now with the token, let's see if we can get access to it. And you can see message, you have access to secret page. That means when we send the token in the headers, a valid token, then we get access. Beautiful. Now if you make some change, let's get rid of the first letter. Okay, and let's hit send. You see the token is invalid. Okay, so this is how you can use JSON Web Token to implement authentication between your client application and your API. Now that we have implemented sign in, sign up, and sign out, this is a good time for us to go to the front end and start building our front end application using React and Next.js. Now we're going to build our front end using Next.js. Next.js is absolutely incredible to build production ready React application, and throughout this course from the beginning to end, you will learn pretty much everything you need to learn about Next.js. I could create a separate section to introduce you with the basics of Next, then we could start building project, but then I thought why not do it all together at the same time, because it will be more fun while working on this actual project and you will learn everything you need to learn step by step. To begin with Next.js, first of all, let's head over to docs. And it is pretty straightforward. We can use this command npx create next app, or we can just manually set up a project, and I prefer this way. So let's go create a new folder, and in fact we already have a folder in our directory. We have frontend. Navigate to that folder. Let me create a new terminal window here. Okay, so we have backend and frontend. Let me get inside frontend. And first of all, I would like to initialize this project with package.json. So npm init-y. All right. Now that we have this package.json here, package.json, let me close all these tabs for now. And let's head over to Next, and to begin, first of all, we need Next, React, and React DOM. Okay, so let's install inside our front-end project. Once it is all installed, we can write these scripts, one for dev, one for build, and one for start. Okay, so you can copy the script, head over to your project, package.json, and here let's replace this with our script. Make sure you have comma here. Beautiful. Now we can run npm run dev, npm run build, and npm start. So when we are in the development mode, we will be running dev, so we can run npm run dev. Now the first thing you want to do when you are starting a Next.js project is create a folder called pages, and inside pages at least have one file called index.js, and that will be served as a home page, as a landing page. So anything you create inside pages folder will be served as a page. Let's have a look here. First thing, let's create a new folder, pages, and inside pages create a new file called index.js. We can write a simple component, const index equals to, let's write an arrow function here, and let's just return h2 index page, and let's export default index. Now we can start the server, npm run dev. All right, now let's head over to localhost 3000, and you see index page. Okay, so by default, anything you create inside pages folder will be served as a page. For example, if we create about.js inside pages folder, then you will be able to go to about page like so. Okay, because it is index.js, it is served as a landing page. So with React, we had to use React Router DOM, but with Next.js, it is all based on pages. Anything you create in the pages directory will be served as a page, which is absolutely incredible. Now, so this is how you kickstart Next.js project. When you are building a web application, you normally use a template so that all your pages have the same headers, same footers, and the content in between, right? So we want to create a template so that we can use in all the pages, so that we can have headers and footers on all the pages. Okay, so let's begin by creating a layout page. So let's create a new component. So basically, we're also going to follow the same pattern that we follow with create React app or any React application. We're going to be writing a lot of components, and then we will bring those components in any of the pages we need, and that's how we can render those components. Okay, so let's begin with components. Let's create this folder here, and here inside, let's create this file called layout.js, and you will notice that any component I write, I will use the capital letter here. Okay, so let's create this component, const layout equals to, and we're going to return. We can wrap everything inside a div, or we can use React fragment. Okay, so let's use React fragment. So React fragment, basically you use like a div to contain more than one element. Okay, and you must have also noticed that when I'm working with Next, I don't need to import React. Okay, it's available globally, so you can just use it like so. Okay, so here we're going to create header. We're going to create a separate component, but for now, let's just write here so that we understand how it works. Okay, we're going to have the footer as well, and then in between, we're going to render the content. Okay, so that we can get as a props, like add children, and then we can just render that here. Then we can export default, and this is our layout. Now let's give it a try. Let's bring this layout here in index. And when we are returning this one, let's get rid of console log. And when we return h2, let's return h2 as a children. So we use layout component and put whatever we want to render, and that will be rendered as children. So you have the layout, anything you pass will be available as children, and that will be rendered here in between header and footer. Okay, so this is the concept of layout. Fix this typo here. Beautiful. And you can see our index page now using this layout, and this layout has header and footer. Beautiful. At the moment we have layout applied, but we need to use some CSS framework such as Bootstrap so that we can have beautiful navigation as a header. And to do that, we need to grab the CDN. For example, let's go to Bootstrap CDN. Let's search for that, and let's grab from CDN.js. Okay, so the Bootstrap link we get like this. So where do we put this link? Okay, so one way would be to import the head component that you get with Next.js and include the CDN in each of the pages, which would be ridiculous, obviously, because that's not practical. We can't include on each pages. So there is a better way, and let me go to Next.js documentation first. So Next.js provides a page called document. So you can see we have custom app and custom document. So we're going to make use of custom document. So document is commonly used to augment your application's HTML and body tags. So here is the example here. So you can create a document which will override the default document that is provided by Next.js, and we can do our own stuff, such as including CDN links, including some script, for example, for adding your Google Analytics code, bringing in the Bootstrap CDN, and so on. So let's copy this code and create a new file called document.js inside pages folder. So here, let's create a new file, underscore document.js. And here, let's paste that code. So we get document, HTML, head, main, and next script from next document. Okay, then we have the my document component here. We can get rid of this get initial props. This method you use when you want to server render your pages. But in our application, we don't want to server render all our pages. Some of the pages can be served as a static page, which will be SEO and at the same time extremely fast. So we don't need this one here. We can get rid of this. Now we can customize this page. First of all, let's give a language tag, lang. Let's make it English. And head, we're going to have some content here. So let's write it like so. And here we can write some standard head content. For example, let's search for HTML head section. Let's go to W3 school, so we can just copy paste the code. Okay, so we can write this viewport. Copy, let's come here and let's paste here. Make sure to have the ending slash. So meta name viewport, content width, device width. This will make our page responsive. Another meta tag we can include is the character set UTF. Okay, we can add this. Make sure to have the ending slash. And with React, you need to just make it uppercase, character set. Okay, and then we can also use all these meta description, meta keywords, and so on, but they will be different based on our pages, right? So only these things will not change. This will stay same for all the pages, so we're going to have them here. Then we want to include the Bootstrap CDN, right? So link, and let's grab that CDN link from CDN.js, bootstrap.min.css. Let's copy and let's paste here. And that is all we want in our head section. And here in the body section, we have the main and we have next script. Now, if you want to include some jQuery scripts and so on, you can put here, but we're not going to need that. Now, if you go to your page, you might already see a bit of a difference. Let me refresh. No, you don't see. You still see the old font. It's not Bootstrap font, but if you restart your server, you can see a bit of a change already because we are now using Bootstrap. Now we can start working on the header. But before we do that, I would like to go to Reactstrap. Now we're going to use this to implement Bootstrap styling. And the reason for that is most of the time you can just use Bootstrap class names. For example, we already have the Bootstrap CDN. So for layout like the grid system, button styling, and so on, you can always use Bootstrap the class names, and that will work perfectly fine. However, some of the components need jQuery. You know that, right? When you're using Bootstrap, for example, if you want the pop-up window if you want the carousel, the slider, or if you want the responsive menu. So when you are in the small screen, when you click, it opens and it closes. So for such functionality, you need to have the jQuery at the same time. Bootstrap.js, jQuery also required. To avoid that, we can use this package, and we can use this package for things like navigation, but other times we can just continue to use Bootstrap class just to make things easier. Okay, so I will mainly be using this component, this Reactstrap, and the components that it provides, mainly for implementing the navigation, so that on mobile screen it is responsive without having to use jQuery or any other scripts. All right, so let's install Reactstrap. You can copy this, and let's go to our front-end project and let's paste here. Okay, now let's start the server once again, npm run dev, and now let's visit the documentation and see how they have implemented the navigation. So go to components, go to navigation, navbar, and let's copy the entire code. Okay, let's copy everything and let's go to our project, and we need to bring that header component here. So let's create a header component inside components, and let's paste everything here. And we don't need to import React, we can get rid of that. And you can see all these components have been imported from Reactstrap. Okay, so we can leave them as it is. And here I'm going to use a functional component instead of class component, and we need to change the name as well. So let's begin const header, and I'm going to return here everything. So all this markup, we can actually copy everything, all this return, and cut from here and paste here. Okay, so that's beautiful. However, we need these few functions as well. We need the is open state in our state, and by default that should be false, and when the element is clicked, then we need to toggle its state from false to true and true to false. Okay, so we need this state and this method. Okay, so is open false, we need that. To use a state in a functional component, we can bring in the use state hook. So import use state from React, and we can use that here. So const is open and set is open equals to use state, and by default its value will be false. And then we need to create this method toggle that will just toggle the state value. Okay, so here we can write that method const toggle, and this will set is open to not is open. Okay, so when it is false, it will be opposite of that, so it will be true, and when it is true, it will be false. That way we can toggle this component. So this toggle has been used here. You can see here the navbar, so you can get rid of this, just keep toggle there and get rid of this. All right, so that is all. Now we can get rid of this from here, and let's export default header. All right, now let's bring this component in layout. And let's use that here. and let's give it a try. Okay, we did something wrong there. Let's have a look. Go to localhost, and you see we have the navigation. Beautiful. And if we resize, we have the hamburger menu, and it works without having to require jQuery. Beautiful. Let's get rid of this drop down. We're not going to use that, so let's get rid of this from here. And we have a simple Bootstrap navigation here. We need to use .env file so that we can use environment variables in Next.js, but there is a bit of a different way of doing it in Next.js. So let's do that. And the way you can do that is you can create a file called next.config.js in the root directory. So here inside frontend, in the root, let's create new file. Let's call it next.config.js, and here you can write some configuration. So let's say module.exports, and we can export some environment variables using the public runtime config. Okay, public runtime config, and here you can write your variables. For example, our app name we can write here. Let's call it SEO blog. We can write our API. So API is going to be http://localhost:8000/API. In fact, we can even call it API development, so that we can have another one for API production, and based on the environment we can switch between development and production. Okay, we can also write production. So production environment, whether it's true or false. So when we are developing locally, we can write it false, but once we deploy this to production, we can change this to true. This is how you can write your environment variables. Now to access these variables, I'm going to create another file called config, just to make things easier. That way you don't have to write this long public runtime config.app.development. It's a bit complicated, long and complicated. To make things simple, I'm going to create another file called config.js, and here to use those environment variables, we need to use the get config that comes with Next.js. So import get config from next config. This way we can access the configuration variables. So const public runtime config equals to get config. Okay, now we can access the variables we wrote here in the next.config. Okay, so I can export const API public runtime config dot production. Okay, so we check using this ternary operator. So if the environment production environment is true, then we can use the production URL, or we can use the local host. So if it is production, we don't have any domain name at the moment, so let's just write https://seo blog.com. we will change it later, just for now. And then if it is not production, if it is false, then that means we are in the development mode, so we can write our development domain here, http:// localhost :8000. This way later it will be very easy to access our API route. We just need to bring in API from this config file. Okay, what else we can do here? We can grab the app name. Let's also write another variable, export const app name, and that is going to be production runtime config dot app name. Now this way we can show the app name in the navbar brand. So we can grab this app name from config in our header component, import app name from config, and let's use this here as our navigation. So here, and we don't see anything. Let's restart the server. Alright, let's give it a refresh, and you see our app name is there, and it is loaded from the environment variables we created in next.config.js. Let's also create .gitignore file so that when we push our project to GitHub, we're not committing node modules and next folders. Let's create a new file. Let's call it .gitignore, and let's write node modules next and next.config.js. So this next.config will be pretty much like .env file. Now let's go ahead and create few pages. Let's create sign up and sign in page inside our pages folder. So let's create a new file, signin.js, and let's also create another file called signup.js. And to begin with, let me just copy this code and put here. Let's change this to sign in. Let's paste here sign in, and let's copy everything and let's put on sign up as well. And what I would like to show you now is how you can navigate in your Next application. So what we can do is let's add a anchor tab, because normally this is how we navigate to pages, right? So let's say we want to go to home page. So let's write here home, and let's do something similar in home as well. Let's go to index, and let's write here sign up. So usually this is how we navigate. Now we can come here and give it a try, click on sign up, and we are in the sign up page. But if you will notice that the page reloads each time we navigate. So for example, if I go to home, you see page reloads, and if I go to sign up again, then page reloads. So this is not really good user experience. It is good enough, but since we are using React, we can make it much better. So instead of reloading each page when we navigate, we can use a link component that comes with Next.js, and that gives us the experience of single page applications. So if you have built any application with React before, you know that when you navigate around each pages, the page doesn't reload because only the component changes, right? So we can do something similar in Next.js. To give that a try, let's bring this link component from Next. Import link from next/link, and then here instead of a href, we're going to use link. Okay, and one thing that can look a bit weird is that href we're not going to write Here, instead, we're going to write inside the link here. Okay, so href you put inside link. So that's how it works with Next.js, and you still use a tag for semantic HTML. You still need that, but you don't use href in a. Instead, you use href in link. Okay, so this is how you can implement navigation with Next.js using this link, and what it will do is it will just change the component instead of reloading the page. Okay, now let's try this in home as well. Okay, we're actually in home. Let's go to sign up. Let's bring link, and instead of just using a, let's use link. Let's use href in link, and here we can put our anchor tag. Now let's give it a try. Now we can go to home and we can go to sign up, and you can see the page doesn't reload and user experience is much better. And we can implement the same functionality in our navigation. So let's go ahead. Let's use this link component in navigation as well. So let's go to components, header, and let me put right here. We don't have components. Instead, we have sign in and sign up. Okay, so here we're not going to worry about this one. We just use next link, href, sign up, sign up. This should be inside a tag. Okay, let's go here, give it a refresh. Let's open our console, make sure we don't have any errors here. Okay, we get a cannot appear as a descendant of a. What we can do is this nav link that comes with Reactstrap, we can put that inside link. And because nav link is actually a tag behind the scene, we can just get rid of the a. Just because we are using Reactstrap, we have to make this change. Otherwise, normally you just use link and you use the anchor tag. But because we are using Reactstrap, we're using nav link, which corresponds to anchor tag. Let's give it a try. Refresh. Home page. Sign up, no page reload, and no errors as well. Beautiful. Now let's do the same in our brand as well. No href here. We're going to wrap this with link, href / when we paste here, and let's copy nav item. Get rid of this one and let's paste here, and this one will be sign in. In fact, we should have the sign in first and then sign up after that. So let's put it here. Now all the links are using the next link, so there shouldn't be any page reload at all. Okay, so we're on the home page, we're in the sign in, and we're in the sign up, sign in, home page. Beautiful. Let's replace navbar brand with nav link, and to make it a bit identical, we can give it Bootstrap class name as well. Let's give font weight bold. All right. Okay, that looks good, and we have no errors as well. Beautiful. Now we can start working in the sign up component so that we can start signing up the users. So go ahead to your components and we create a sign up component. So we can create a new folder. Let's call it auth. So we're going to put all authenticated components here. So inside here, let's create a new file. Let's call it signup.js. Let's actually change this name to signup component, because otherwise there will be conflict, because we have signup page as well. Okay, so signup component, and let's just begin with const signup component return. Let's just write signup export default signup component, and let's import this one in our signup page. We can import signup component from components auth signup component, and then we can use here. So let's get rid of this link we don't need now. Okay, so here signup component, and we can just show the signup component here. All right, let's have a look here. Let's go to signup, and we have signup page. Beautiful. And later, if you decide to include your signup page in some other page, or maybe on sidebar, you are flexible enough to do that. Okay, so this is the beauty. We create components and we show those components here in pages, however way we like. Okay, so let's continue working on the signup component. Let's begin by creating a signup form. So we don't need h2. Instead, we can show a signup form, and let's invoke this function signup form, and we can start creating this signup function here. Const signup form, and this will simply return a form. So return form, and form we need to have a onSubmit method as well. So let's write it onSubmit, and we're going to create a method. Let's call it handle submit. Okay, so this is our form, and here we're going to need a couple of input fields for name, email, and so on. So let's do it. Div with the class name of form group, and here we create input with class name of form control. The type is going to be text. Placeholder, we can say type your name, and on change, when the input field change, when the user starts typing in, we want to grab that event and save that as event target value. So we can create another function called handle change. So we need these two methods. So let's create here const handle submit, and at the moment let's just console log. We also need to grab the event and event.prevent default, so the page doesn't reload. Okay, we can create similar method for handle change, and we can console log event target value. Okay, so on the input field, whatever user is typing in, we can grab that event and we can get the value. And eventually what we're going to do is we're going to take this value and put in the state. So in the state, we're going to have name, email, and password, and anything we get from the user input on change, we're going to take that and set in the state. Here we're going to have more than one method here, and we're going to have some content as well. So let's put it inside React fragment. And let's invoke this function here. Beautiful. And we have the signup page. Anything you start typing here, you can see it is console logged. Beautiful. So let's continue with our form. We need one more input field for email and one for password. Okay, so this one's going to be type of email, password, type your email as a placeholder, and here type is going to be password and type your password. And we need a button, the submit button, so we can create that right here. Let's create a div button with the class name of button primary, and let's call it sign up. Okay, now what we can do is we need to grab all these on-change values and put in the state so that we can submit that information to our backend to create new user, right? So we need a state. We can use a use state hook from React. So let's bring that in. Const use state from React, and we can create a state here. Const, and state is not going to be just for one field like name or email. We have name, email, password. So we're going to create something like values and then set values. Okay, and here we can create a state, and that will have multiple properties. For example, name, and by default it will be empty string, email empty string, password empty string. And I'm going to add few more properties here because we're going to use them a bit later. So error, let's leave it empty. Loading, let's set to false. Message empty string, and show form true. By default it's true. So what I'm going to do with these properties is that message, when we sign up successfully, we will populate this message property here so that we can show users the success message, and show form, by default it will be true, but once they create the account we will hide the form. Okay, so we can do a lot of stuff with these values, and this is our state. The next thing we want to do is we want to grab these values as the user types here. As they type, the email name, the value will change. We put that updated value in the state, and we grab that from the state and set these input component, input elements value as well. So to make things easier, let's destructure everything from state. Name, email, password, error, loading, message, and show form. Okay, now we can easily use them instead of having to say values dot something like that. So down here we can write the value. So for this one it's going to be the value of name. Let's copy. For this one it's going to be the value of email, and for this one it's going to be the value of password. And we also need to create handle chains. Now we don't want to create handle chains for each of them, one for email, one for password, one for name, right? That's stupid. So what we can do is we can just pass the name, and we can handle that. We can create a dynamic handle change method. So here email, let's pass email. On this one let's pass the name string, name, email, and here let's pass password. Okay, so we need to create this handle chains method here, which we already have, but now what we're going to do is we're going to slightly modify. So first we get name, whatever that is, and then we get event, and then we do something here. So this is a function returning another function. Okay, so here what we can do is we can set values we keep the rest of the values, whatever is already there, and anything that comes in, we're going to set. Okay, so first of all, error, if there is any error before handle change, if we are showing some kind of error message, once they start typing in, we want to hide that, right? So anytime there is a handle change, any existing error we want to hide. So let's set it to false, and then whatever name we're getting, so we get the name here as an argument. Now that will change. So that could be name, that could be email, that could be password, that will change. Okay, so we grab that, whatever that is, and then we set that in the state as event.target.value. Sorry, it should be import. Beautiful. Okay, so we got the handle submit, we got the handle change as well. Now just to see, let's see this information when user clicks the submit button. Okay, instead we can do console table and we can pass everything here just so that we can see in the console, because this information, name, email and password, we will be sending to our backend so that we can create a new user. So let's give it a try. If everything is working, we can work on handle submit method, and then we can send all this information to our backend to create a new user. So here, let's have this console log. Okay, so let's type the name, Ryan, email, ryan@gmail.com, password, and let's hit sign up. And you can see we have all this information, name, email and password. So what we need to do is we need to take this information, send to the backend so that we can create a new user, right? Now when we are developing, I don't like to keep writing this all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these values in the state. Okay, so it's a bit easier. Let's type Ryan. All right, so it's easy to give it a try now. Okay, so this information we need to send to the backend. Let's continue that in the next lecture. To send this user information to our backend, we need a HTTP client, and we're going to use a fetch. Okay, so we're going to install npm install isomorphic fetch. This isomorphic fetch works in both a client side and server side. Okay, let's install this one. And let's start our server, and let's go to our project, and let's create a new folder here. Inside frontend, let's create a folder called actions, and here let's write a file. Let's call it auth.js. So all the auth related methods we're going to write here. So first of all, let's bring in this isomorphic fetch. Import fetch from isomorphic fetch, and we need to bring in the API as well. So we have that in the config. Okay, so depending on our environment, whether it is a development or production, that will change. Okay, so let's bring that in. Import API from config, and then we can write our sign up method here. So export const sign up, and to sign up we need the user information, right? So you need the user object, and once we get that, we can return fetch. So the first argument to fetch is the URL. So let's use backticks, $, curly brace, and we can embed the variable API slash, and the route is going to be sign up. So this is what we have in our backend, domain / sign up. So this is the first argument. Second argument is the configuration. So the method is going to be post. It's a post method. and then we are sending the headers accept application/JSON content type also is going to be application/JSON, and then we need to send the body as well, because this user information we're going to send in the request body just like we did earlier with Postman. So to send this we need to stringify first. Okay, so JSON.stringify user. With JSON stringify, any JavaScript object becomes a JSON object. Okay, so we send the JSON information like so in the body, and then once we do that we will get the response, right? So response, and that response we're going to give it to the component. Okay, so we're going to bring this method here in our component and we're going to handle the response. Okay, so that's the idea. So response return response.json, so we get the JSON response, and if there was any error we catch the error and we just console log. That's only for us, because if there is any error data coming from the backend such as validation, that will also be available here. Okay, so this is our signup method. Once we pass the user information to this method, this will make request to our backend and create a new user. Now we can use this signup in our signup component. So here we can import signup from one step up, and action/auth, and we can use that here on handle submit. Let's comment this out. So before we submit, first of all we want to set values in the state, values loading to true. So when we start submitting we set it to true, and once we get the response we set it to false. Okay, so loading is true, error is false in the beginning, but during the response if we got error response then obviously we can populate that in the state. Okay, so set values, once we do that we need the user information. So to create a new user we need name, email and password. We have here available in the state. Okay, so that's user object. Let's put right here const user equals to this object with name, email and password. Then we're going to pass this to signup, right? We pass this user data, then we get the response. Okay, so first of all we check if we got any error response. Okay, so data.error, and for this to work, when you're building your API, always make sure you are sending the error with this format, not error, just error, and then you're not sending the object error object. Make sure you don't do that. You just always send some text, okay, some string of error, and that's how we have done it. But sometimes if you have returned error object by any chance, this will give you error and you will be wondering what is going on. If you get anytime data.error in the browser, make sure to check your API response. Okay, and sometimes you might return error something like this. That will also not work, because as you can see here we are always checking for the error, error. Okay, because that's a bit of a tip there. Now then data error, if we got any error we want to set that in the state, values error, and we set that to data.error. But if we didn't get any error, then in fact then let's just use then here. So then we get the data. Okay, we use the arrow function here. Okay, so if we get the data, let me get rid of all this. Okay, let me grab all this. So we have then here, then we get the data, and then we check if we got data.error. So if data.error, we set values error data.error. Otherwise, if everything was good, then we should get response, right? So once we get the response, we again set the values, and this time we want to empty the fields. Okay, so if the user is successfully created, we want to clear out the values here, name, email, password, and so on. In our case, it is hard coded, but in real life we need to empty that. Okay, so name, we set it to empty string, email, empty string, password, empty string, error, empty string, loading is going to be false. It was true in the beginning, but once we got the response, it should be false. Message, that's going to be data.message. On successful sign up, we send the success message. Okay, so we show that data.message, and then show form false. Okay, so once the user create account, we want to disable the form, the submit button. And loading false, we can also use that here as well. If we got any error, then also we can show the loading false. Okay, so this is our handle submit to create a new user. Now we can give this a try. Actions auth config. So there's a typo there. Actions auth config. All right, let's try with this information. Let's try creating a user, and we get error because the email is taken. Okay, beautiful. We're going to display the error as well, but this time let's change the username. Let's change it to Jen. Let's create a new user. Okay, as you can see, we must have got the successful response. The value from the state has been cleared out. Let's look on this one. Let's have a look here, and you can see sign up success, please sign in. Beautiful. So we can successfully sign up a new user. We can also have a look in the database. Robo3t. Previously we had only Ryan, now we have Jen as well. Okay, so everything has been generated. Beautiful. Now what we need to do is we need to display the success message, error message, anything like that. Okay, so let's do that as well. And I'm going to create a few simple functions to do that, so it's much cleaner. So first one, const show loading. Okay, so it's arrow function here, and I'm going to check loading in the state. So if that is true, then I'll create a div with class name of alert info, and I'm going to write here loading if that was true. If not, I'll just return empty string. Okay, so this is for loading. Let me copy, paste one more time. So this one I can use for showing error. So error, so if there is any error in the state, let's change the class name from info to danger, and let's say, let's show the error message. All right, and this one we can use to show message. So if there is message in the state, then we can show that. All right, now that we have all these, we can use them here. So loading, error, and message. So here on top of our sign up form, we can put here show error, show loading, and show message. All right, and this form also we want to show only if the show form is true. Okay, show form and sign up form. So that means if they have already created, then we will not show the form. Okay, so here let's try creating one more user. Let's call it red sign up, and you can see sign up success, please sign in. Okay, beautiful. And you see the form has been hidden. Okay, if I refresh, I see it again, and if I try to create a user with the same information, I see email is taken. So beautiful. Now we have the sign up component and it's fully working. Finally, what we can do is we can put it inside a fixed container width, so it is not fully stressed. Okay, the reason I didn't do here because I want to keep it flexible. I don't want to write any styling here, so that it is flexible enough to use. For example, if you want to put this sign up form in the sidebar, you can, because here this component doesn't have anything, it's just the form. So let's do it. Let's go to pages, let's go to sign up, and we have sign up here. Let's create a div with the class name of row, and here let's create a div with column medium 8 and offset medium 2 on both sides, and here we can put our form. All right, and maybe we can even go to 6 and 3 offset. All right, we can center the text. We can have a bit of padding top 4, padding bottom 4. All right, and for the time being, I'm not going to worry about footer. It is completely optional, you can have it, but at the moment I'm going to get rid of that one from layout. Beautiful. Now we have fully working sign up page. Let me get rid of this page as well. Sign up. Beautiful. Let's implement sign in as well. So the first thing you want to do is go to actions auth and create another method that will send a request to sign in the user. Okay, so let's copy paste. It's going to be pretty similar. So to sign in, we're also going to send the user, and this time we're going to send the user email and password. So the endpoint is going to be sign in, and that's going to be the headers. We're going to send the user in the body, and everything else is going to be same. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Export sign in, we just need to change here. Beautiful. Now let's go create another component here. New file. Sign in component. We can pretty much reuse the existing code. Okay, so let's grab everything from there and let's put here, and let's make small change. Sign up, it's going to be sign in, and on handle submit we're going to use the sign in. Okay, now before I make any change here, let me go to pages, sign in, and let me bring that in just like we did here. So this is going to be sign in here, and we're going to have the same layout just like we have here. Let's copy everything, come here, let's replace this with this, let's change this to sign in, and let's change this to sign in. Go have a look here. That's a sign up, and that's a sign in. Okay, so we just need to make some change. We need to send only email and password. So let's come here. Let's change the component name as well. We haven't done that yet. Sign in, sign in, and let's change this to sign in form, the form that we have. Let's change this to sign in. Let's get rid of the name, we don't need that. Okay, that can stay the same. We don't need name, let's get rid of that. And we're going to slightly modify the handle submit. So once the user sign up, what we need to do is we need to save that user information. So if you remember, in our backend, when users sign up, we send the token, JSON web token, as well as the user information such as name, email, profile, and so on. So those information we're going to store in the local storage, and the JSON web token we're going to store in the cookies. To implement all that, we need to create a bunch of other methods here in our action, but for now let's just make some changes here. Let's get rid of the name. We just send the email and password, and when we send that, if we get an error, we still populate that in the state. That's fine, but otherwise, so instead of doing all this, we can redirect the user to some other page. So we can get rid of all this, and we can redirect them to, for example, let's say home page. For now, later we will change it so that each user, based on their role, they will be redirected to either admin page or the user dashboard. But for now, let's just redirect to home page. So we can use this router that comes with Next.js. So router, and we get this method called push. Okay, so let's use backticks, let's use slash. So if the user has successfully signed in, then we're going to just redirect them to the home page for now. So here we're going to do some more stuff later, such as save user token to cookie, save user info to local storage, authenticate user. Okay, so we're going to do all that, but we need to write some functions here in the actions, so we can do that in the next lecture, but for now we can give it a try. Now before we do that, make sure we have this imported. So here, import router from next router. All right, now let's give it a try. Okay, sign in as Ryan, and you can see we saw loading for some time, and then we are redirected to home page. And if you check your console, if you have it already open, if not, you can give it a try one more time. Okay, and here go to network, and you can see here sign in, and we have got this response. We got the token as well as the user information. Now as soon as you refresh the page, it's no longer there because it's just a response, it's not persisted anyway. So we're going to save this information in the local storage and save this token in the cookie. Okay, so we can do that in the next lecture. We're going to write a couple of helper methods that will allow us to save the token in the cookie, user information in the local storage, and we can authenticate the user. So let's go to our actions. Okay, so we got two methods here, sign up and sign in, and we're going to use create a few more methods here. So we're going to write a few methods to set the cookie. Okay, so we're going to pass the token in the cookie so that we can save, and we need another method to get that cookie so that we can validate, authenticate the user. Okay, and we're going to write some functions that will allow us to get the information from the local storage. And then we also need to authenticate the user by passing that information anytime user sign in. The information, that is the token and the user information, we need to pass that to the cookie in local storage. Okay, so let's start with these methods. So first one I'm going to create is export const, let's call it set cookie. Okay, so anytime you want to set the cookie, you want to send the key and value. Okay, so this is kind of a reusable function. So first we check if the process is browser, because the Next.js, it runs in both client side and server side. So we need to make sure we are running in the client side. So process.browser. So if we are in the client side, then cookie.set, using this method, we're going to pass the key and then value. And then the third argument is going to be some configuration, such as expires. We can set it to 1, so it expires in 1 day. So in a similar way, we set the cookie, we can remove the cookie as well. So let's copy this and put here, and let's call it remove cookie. So to remove the cookie, all we need is the cookie name, which is a key. We don't need value. So here we're going to use cookie.remove, and we pass the key. All right, so this way we set the cookie, we remove the cookie. Okay, and we need another method to get the cookie, because these are just the process of setting and removing, but to actually use the cookie, we need another method. So let me paste it one more time. Let's put here, and let's call it get cookie. Okay, we give the key, and then if the process is browser, we grab that using the cookie.get method, and we just give the name of the cookie that we want to get. Okay, so that is going to be the key. So any name you pass, if you save your cookie as token by the name of token, then you pass the string token here, and that will give us that cookie. Now while we're doing all this, I forgot to install one package to use the cookie, and that is called JS cookie. So we need that package to be able to use this. Okay, so let's bring that in. Let's stop the server, npm install js-cookie. Let's run the server one more time. Let's go on top, and let's import from JS cookie, and then here local storage. Here we need two methods. One is to set in the local storage, just like we did with cookies. One is to set, another is to remove. Export, let me bring it down just a bit. Export const set local storage. We get the key and value as an argument. Okay, and then we check if process is browser, local storage set item. We can use this method to set the item with the key, and that's going to be the key, whatever that is. And then value, we're going to convert it to JSON data using JSON.stringify. So any JavaScript object we want to convert as JSON and save in the local storage. Okay, let's copy, and let's write another one to remove. So to remove the cookie, we check if the process is browser, and local storage dot remove item, and we just need to pass the key this time. So with this, anytime we want to set any item in the local storage, we give the name, whatever that is we want to save. For example, if we want to save by the name of user, then the key we pass as user, and the value we pass, so that will be available in the local storage. And let's get rid of that, and we can remove from local storage as well. Now finally, let's write this authenticate method. This method is what we're going to use in our sign in component. Okay, so once we sign in, we get the token, right? We get the token and the user information. So this information we will pass here in this authenticate method, and that will use these methods that we have created. Set cookie and set local storage. We're going to use these methods to set in the local storage. Okay, let's have a look here. Export const authenticate. So we're going to pass the data and then the next, which is a callback function. Okay, so this method we're going to use in our sign-in component, and as you can see, this method takes two arguments. One is the data and another is a callback function. So the data is going to be whatever we got from the response. Okay, so that response will have the token as well as user information. So that is the data, and this router.push, anything like this we can do in the callback. So let's write here. First of all, we want to set the cookie. So set cookie by the name, let's set by the name of token, and the value that is coming in the data in the response, right? So that is going to be data.token. Sorry. So this is how we have sent the response from our backend. If you remember, we are sending the token and the user, right? So this token we're going to set in the cookie, and the user set local storage. So user we're going to save in the local storage by the name of user. So that's the key value is going to be data.user. And the reason I'm saving in a different location is because cookie is generally considered a better option to store sensitive information such as token. Once we do all this with the data, we want to execute the callback function. So this is basically a middleware. So you see it does some stuff and then it executes the callback function, and then we can do whatever left to do after that. We still have to do something, and that is redirecting the user, right? So that we can do here in the next here. Okay, so before we actually come back and do it, let's write one more method here, and this will give us the authenticated users information from the local storage, so that we can use that anywhere in our application, for example in navigation or any other component, so that we can show the username and so on. Okay, export const, let's call it is auth. Okay, and we check if process.browser, then we first check if we have the cookie. Okay, that's important, otherwise we might not have a genuine user, we might not have authenticated user, right? So first we check cookie checked. Sorry, this is just a variable I'm creating, and this will hold the value of the cookie that we have in our cookie. Okay, so get cookie by the name of token, and if we have that, so if we can get the token in the cookie, that means we have a user, because unless we have a logged in user, our cookie by the name of token will be empty, will not actually exist, right? So if we have that, cookie checked, if it is there, then we again check local storage dot get item. We try to get item by the name of user from the local storage. So if that exists, then that will return, and we're going to parse the data, okay, because it was saved as a JSON data using stringify, but now that we want to get that data back from the local storage and again be able to use as a JavaScript object, we can use this parse method. Local storage dot get item by the name of user, otherwise we can return false. So this is our isAuth method. This will always give us the user that is currently saved in the local storage if that exists. So anytime we need to check the logged in user's name, email, role, and so on, we can easily use this, and it's going to be pretty good. So let's go to sign in component. Let's use this method so that we can pass the data that will set the token in the cookie, user in the local storage, and that is going to be beautiful. Okay, let's do that. Let's use this in our sign up. Go on top, separate by comma. Let's bring that in, authenticate, and let's come all the way down here. Okay, so else, if we don't have any error in the response, we authenticate. So authenticate has two arguments. First one is the data, second one is a callback function. So we're going to pass the arrow function, and here in the callback we're going to just redirect, and in the first argument we pass the data. So this authenticate method will receive the data, save that cookie in local storage, and execute next, which is basically the redirect here. Later we can come back and check the user role, and based on role we can redirect them to a different location, but for now let's leave it. And let's give this a try. Okay, let's open this, and to go to the local storage, let's go to application. Okay, so application, let me drag it here. Application, at the moment you can see I have a bunch of other fields, but I don't have the user information in the local storage. You don't see user information. And in the cookies I have a bunch of other stuff, but I don't have cookie by the name of token. So here, now let me try. Okay, let's sign in, and as soon as I sign in, you saw the token and something happened here. Local storage is not defined. Okay, that looks like a typo. It should be capital S. We'll come back to that, but here you can see, if you click here, okay, so that is our token, you can see. And if you go to the local storage, we don't have the user because there's something wrong there. Let's go and fix that. Let's go to auth. It's on line 60. Local storage, let's change here as well. Let's change here as well. Let's save, and we don't have any sign out functionality yet. So if you want to manually delete the token or cookie, you can do so. You just click here and come here and click this. Okay, that's gone. Let's try one more time. Sign in. All right, now we have the token. Beautiful. If you go to the local storage, we have the user object, and here you can see the user information: email, name, username, and ID. Okay, beautiful. So far we can sign in and we can save the user information. Now you can refresh as many times you like. It is always there. Okay, so we need to implement now sign out functionality. So when they sign out, we can remove the information from the local storage as well as cookie. So let's go to our actions one more time. Let's create this sign out method. Let me put it somewhere here. Exports const sign out, and I'm going to use a callback function here. So once user clicks sign out, we can redirect them just like we did earlier. So here, first thing we need to do is we need to remove the cookie. Remove cookie by the name of token. And as you can see, remove cookie, we had this helper method earlier, so we pass the name. So remove token, remove local storage as well by the name of user, and we execute next. Okay, so once we do all that, first we do all that because it all happens in the browser, then we send request to our backend server, right? Return fetch, and now the first argument, let's use backticks API / sign out, and then the second argument we pass the method get. It's going to be the type of get, and then we get response. Okay, we don't really need to handle this response, so we can just console log, let's say sign out success, and if there is an error, let's console log the error. Okay, so this is our sign out method. We will remove all the information from the storage, and then we make a request to our backend. Now we can use this sign out functionality somewhere in our navigation. Okay, so sign in, sign up, we can have the sign out button as well, and we can conditionally show this link. If the user is logged in, we don't show them. If not, we show them. Okay, so we can do all that because we have this method is auth that gives us the user from the local storage. So we can always check if we have user in the local storage, we have the logged in user, so that time we can hide these ones, otherwise we show them. Go to navigation. In our headers, we can bring sign out and auth from our actions. Import sign out and is auth from one step up actions / auth, and we can create a link here. So let me copy this. Okay, so let's write here. First of all, we're going to check is auth, and you always need to invoke this one. Okay, this is a function. Unless you invoke, you don't get the user. So is auth, if we have that, then we can do something here, and that is showing the nav item for sign out. Okay, so here I'm going to paste this one, and let me change this to sign out. Okay, we're not saying anything. Let's JSON stringify JSON.stringify is auth, and we're not getting anything. Let's have a look in our local storage. We have the user. Let's go to actions auth. The reason we're not getting the user information because we're not getting the cookie. Okay, because I tried only with this code, removing this code, and that worked. So that means I had a problem here. So get cookie, I had to return cookie. Alright, so make this change. Make sure you are returning the cookie in the get cookie method, and that should be good. Okay, so here you can see we have the user information there, and we can also see this sign out. So let's go to header. Let's get rid of this. So if user is authenticated, we can show sign out, and here if they click here, we want to execute the sign out method. So when they sign out, I would like to make a request to our backend, use this method as well, so that all the data from the storage is removed. We're also going to use this callback so that we can redirect the user, right? So here, let's write on click. Okay, we can use the arrow function here. First thing we want to do is we want to execute the sign out method, okay, that we have in the auth actions. That will remove the user data from the local storage, make request to backend, all that stuff. Inside this sign out, we are going to use the callback. So we can use the router dot replace. You can use both push and replace. Okay, so replace / sign out. Sorry, it's sign in. So once they sign out, I will redirect them back to the sign in page or login page. And I need to make sure I have the router. So let me bring that. Import router from next router. Okay, let's go down. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, we have sign out. Let's have a look in the cookie. We have the token, we have local storage. If I click sign out, I'm redirected to sign up. Okay, so that's gone. Cookie is gone. User is also gone. Beautiful. I'm redirected to sign up. Okay, that's because I have sign up. Let's use sign in. In fact, we shouldn't use the link here. We don't need link at all. We just get rid of this one. Alright, let's try sign in. Alright, we have the sign out. We can click and that works. We're back to sign in. Now when you hover over, you don't see anything, so we can show some kind of a cursor so people know they can click. Right, so we can write some inline styling here. Style pointer cursor. It's the other way around. It's cursor, it's pointer. Okay, now you see it's a bit of a sign here. Beautiful. Before I finish this lecture, I want to make sure that I hide and show these buttons conditionally. So if I sign in, let's change the text as well in the button. Let's go to sign in. Let's go all the way down. Let's change this to sign in. Okay, let's sign in. Okay, if I'm signed in, I want to hide these links. Okay, so back to header. So that's sign up and that's sign in. So let me copy all this. And here I'm going to write is auth. So if not authenticated, then I would like to show these two links. Okay, now because there are two, more than one, we need to wrap. Okay, we need to wrap, so we can use React fragment, and I can put all that here. Alright, so if not authenticated, we can show these buttons with these links. If authenticated, we hide them and we just show the sign out. Alright, beautiful. I want to give you a bit of a homework. If you know how to use effect hook, then you can try doing it on your own, and I will show you how you can do it in the next lecture anyway. Okay, so at the moment you can see we are hiding these sign in and sign up components, but people can manually still go there. I would like you to try it on your own, how to redirect a user if they land on the sign in component. If they are logged in, then you want to redirect them to home page. So try to do it on your own and apply it in both sign in and sign out. If you're new to use effect and you don't know how to do it, that's fine. Just follow me in the next lecture. Let's implement this redirect functionality. So if they are logged in and they try to go to this page manually, we will redirect them using the use effect hook. So first of all, I'm here in the sign in component. So I'm going to require this use effect hook. So use effect, if you're new to it, it is basically a lifecycle method, replacement of lifecycle. Previously we had to use component did mount, component will mount, all that stuff. Now everything is handled by use effect, which is awesome. Okay, so use effect, it takes a function as an argument and you pass empty object, unless empty array, unless you want to run this effect when certain things happens. For example, if you want to run this, when we receive the message, then you will pass something like message. Okay, so we will come back to it later. There will be some use cases, but most of the time you don't need to. Okay, so anytime there is a change in the state, this will run automatically. All right, so use effect, what I would like to do is I would like to bring that is auth from actions. Okay, and I would like to grab the authenticated user. Okay, so if I can get the authenticated user from the local storage, which means we already have a logged in user. So if that is the case, then I would like to redirect, right? I can use the next router. So router dot push, and I can push the user homepage. So if authenticated user, then redirect to homepage. Okay, let's give it a try. Let's try going to sign in page manually, and you see we are redirected back to home page. Beautiful. Now let's do same in sign up as well. So let's put here, and let's make sure we have is auth, and let's also make sure we have import router from next router. Forgot to bring the use effect, and you see we are redirected back to home page. Okay, beautiful.